Hello everyone and welcome to another Getting Stuff Painted, my bi-weekly update give or take on the miniatures I've been painting for the games we cover here on the channel. And this is the slightly congested with a cold edition, so apologies in advance for any little sniffles etc. But going from left to right, we have some Kill Team to talk about, we have some Age of Sigmar / Warcry, new, well technically not because we talked about the bases last time, but sort of new, Necromunda, and then coming back after a long hiatus we have the Elder Scrolls Call to Arms. As always, vast majority painted with contrast paint, and with that let's get started. So I mentioned last time that I had 3 standard Marines left to go for the Nemesis Claw Kill Team. They are not the right choice in basically every possible scenario because they don't have a unique enough role that makes them better than one of the specialised operatives for the Kill Team. They are just Marines with bolt guns. That one is supposed to be modelled with a bolt pistol. I used the wrong gun when I was modelling him, but I didn't really have any intention of using him, so it was too late to change at that point anyway. But you probably will see them in Kill Team Battle Report at some point just to annoy the people who try hard their setups, like why on earth would you use a less than optimal setup? Because I want to, would be the reason, because I feel like it. So with the completion of these 3 miniatures, I'm not going to bother discussing the colours for the Nemesis Claw. I've already done that twice now because, been working on the Kill Team for quite a while now. I do want it to be in focus again, however. There we go, I think. With the completion of these 3 miniatures, and I will say I kind of rushed these 3 a little bit compared to the rest. I do like reaching that point with the Kill Team where you're like, or just any box of miniatures, I guess, any project where it's just, you're done, you're finished. You've finished the last one, it's all done. You can tidy away any box you kept for reference. You can put away all the extra bits of sprue or whatever else. It's just, you are done, it's completed, and the kind of dopamine you get from completing that and then thinking about, well, what's my next project going to be? And who knows? So I like reaching that point with a project, although you do have to kind of force yourself through if you know it's models you're not really going to use. Or certainly not much compared to the ones you've already focused on to get done faster, so you can get them on the table faster. But it is nice to call the Nemesis Claw in its entirety, at least the box as provided. That is them completely done, and they were cool, they were very interesting. I painted more Chaos Marines than I ever have because I was only ever used to painting Nurgle and Death Guard specifically. I didn't really ever paint like Black Legion or anything like that. Here I'm painting all these other branches. I've never thought, oh, another loyalist, but still painting Dark Angels. Never would have thought I did that. I got reminded here because I tried to make this helmet look a bit like a Dark Angel's helmet. Kinda, again, rushed with this one because he's equipped with an unlegal loadout. You can't have a chainsword and a bolt gun, it has to be a bolt pistol. Well, it's just an especially large bolt pistol. We'll just say that. So if you do have any questions about how any of these were painted, oh yeah, I made it like the head's still in there, so I just put blood down the back because it's edgy and cool. Yeah, if you have any questions about the actual colours used, I did go through it in previous episodes. Just look for the Nemesis Claw Specialist in the thumbnail, ideally the first time they're in there, and I'll go into detail in that about the colours I use. If specifically you want to use contrast paint, and well, the gold isn't contrast, but the rest of it is with some dry brushing and some washes, and that's basically it. Very, very replicable if you wanted to, for some reason, copy how I've done those. So that is done. As far as what's next for Kill Team, I am not sure. I'm fine with taking a little bit of a break from doing another, like immediately jumping into another full Kill Team project. But you might see some 3D printed alternative sculpts for one I haven't bought yet, but plan to at some point in the future. You might see those if I get in the mood to paint them. Or I'm interested in tackling Harlequins, again just as something super different that I'm not used to painting, but future's wide open, I haven't fully decided yet. So next, something else we also technically talked about last time is some basic Crypt Ghouls for specifically Warcry. In my case, that's what I want them for. They come in sets of 10, I think, so there's 5 left. I did model one as kind of like the boss one, and I think I remember mentioning when I was talking about the Crypt Stalker, is that what he was called? Their names are so similar, they all blend together. It's like Crypt Flare, Crypt Stalker, Crypt Ghoul, Crypt Ghost. It's all just blending together into a mush. I do remember talking, at least a little bit about this guy, saying that the leader of the ghouls is going to be painted a different skin tone. That must have been a different miniature I was thinking of, because like on the official art, he is just the same colour as the rest of them. He's just slightly larger and has a more impressive skeleton riding him in an unfortunate position. So that's what makes him the boss, because he's got somebody riding him, which is fair enough, I guess. I don't remember his name again, because it's just the named hero versions for Warcry are even sillier. It's just as a combination of adjectives and verbs and stuff. So excuse me. So yeah, I don't remember, but in terms of how I've been painting the Flesh Tear Court units, I did go over that last time because I did my first one of these as a test. They're super quick to paint, but essentially it is just Gut Ripper Flesh, Garagag Sewer, which I'm going to talk more about in a second because I use that a lot on the Delac miniatures we'll talk about in a moment. Skeletal Horde for any bones, and Nuln Oil. That's essentially it. And the base is the same as I've been doing for like the Nemesis, well, not the Nemesis Claw, sorry, for anything undead related to Warcry. But again, as a matter of note, here's these done, and I believe I have 5 normal ones left. I doubt I'd ever use the full, I couldn't use the full 10 because one of them's been made into a hero, but I doubt I'd want to ever use the full 9. They are cheap and cheerful. I've just realised I forgot to use my Nurgling Slime on him, so that just looks like drool or something much worse. It's meant to be bright green like his. That's what I get for rushing through them. I finished these this morning, so I'll be fixing that off camera. Oh, that's embarrassing. Hide behind there. Get away from me. You bring shame to my family. And then we just have, this is like the most basic of basic because he doesn't have any, like he's not holding anything. Even the camera's offended by how basic this one is. So he's like your exceptionally basic Crypt Ghoul because he's got nothing fancy at all. He isn't even allowed underwear. Although his front, like his shame, his front shame is covered, his back shame is not. And then another one, this one's pretty basic as well. Honestly, that's kind of what I deliberately picked out, the ones that didn't look super complicated to get done first after doing the hero. Oh, you know what? A bit of paint got chipped right there. I must have scratched that when I was doing the wash with my nail. That's annoying. Well, that's 2 things I need to fix now off camera. Again, how embarrassing. But you'll be seeing the Crypt Ghouls kind of paced out unless I do them in bulk at one point or another. But just getting those done, and then the last thing I have planned for the Flesh Tear Court is something really big. So don't get too excited. I'm not immediately bringing Necromunda to the channel or anything like that, but I am certainly enjoying painting the miniatures from the Hive War box, I believe. This is one of the gangs you get in it, the Delac gang. This is the gang that most appealed, which is why I went for that particular box. This is the miniature I painted first to test my ideas for colour scheme. So before I talk about the actual, like how I've modelled them, I'll just very quickly go over the colours, what's on my mind, because I mentioned the Garagak Sewer, however it's pronounced, contrast paint. That is the base I used for all of them. Then I gave them a dry brushing of Dryad Bark, which is a kind of nice warm dry brushing brown, technical paint by Citadel. Then I used Redemptor Gold for all the gold trim on their trenches, etc. Also, I did at first do a little gold trim there. You can kind of see it going through them. I've changed my mind because the official paint job doesn't do that. You have no idea how I had to fight myself to not do skin tone in these little butt windows here. You could absolutely make it look like they've got their butts showing. I don't know why their coats are modelled like that, who did that or why they did that. But there is absolutely a world in which you could paint those skin tone inside that little gap there, and they've just got their butts out. I don't know why that's like that, but whatever. Their guns are Bal Red, Lead Belcher Silver for anything of the silver variety. Their skin tone is just the grey cere I used as the base coat, with Frostheart for their eyes, because they'll have like weird eyes. That's kind of part of their thing. They're like sneaky stabby assassins, backroom information brokers, that kind of thing of the Necromunda planet. And the bases I talked about last time, so I'm not going to mention them now. But this was my test miniature. I was like, yeah, I'm happy with that. Oh, Nuln Oil over everything on him as well, including the guns. And then I had to plan out, well, if I am going to eventually play Necromunda, I need to kind of plan out a starting gang. You get 1,000 credits. And the method by which Necromunda is laid out, it reminds me an awful lot of Blood Bowl, like how it paces things and how it explains things and how it lays out things, and how you make your team is exceptionally similar to how you make your team in Blood Bowl. So this is a model which I modelled in mind of, well, this is one I could see recruiting further down the line. But in terms of actually starting lineup, because he's got that plasma pistol and that's kind of expensive to get credits wise, dual wielding it with just a stub gun, I think that is. he's one you would recruit later. So he was my test miniature, and part of the reason I used him as my test miniature is I knew he would not be in my initial lineup. The rest of these 4 are going to be in my starting lineup, and then I have 1 more I think still to paint that will be in my starting lineup, and then the one who's actually meant to be the boss if you just use the team as presented in the box, I've still got him. Oh, good. Having the cold is awful. Him to paint up, but I don't intend to use him in my roster either. I looked around online for like suggestions for starting rosters, and a lot of rosters, regardless of gang, always like putting snipers in the gang leader's hands. My assumption is because on average they're better at shooting because they're the boss. So this will actually be my gang leader. He is equipped with a sniper rifle. They do not come as standard with a sniper rifle. I bought the Delac like weapon upgrade sprues, which are normally way too expensive. Thank goodness it'd been my 1-year anniversary of like signing up to Games Workshop's official website with an account, so they gave me a £10 off voucher. So I got them for £10 off, which made them relatively reasonable, especially considering I didn't use that many things from the sprue. Still got tons of it sitting. So yeah, he's going to be my boss, using that sniper and painted in the way I just described. He's just really good at shooting. I didn't get rid of his gold trim, and in fact I added extra gold trim, so this is just for a recording thing. It's so on a table it's like, oh, he's got lots of extra gold trim, he's probably important. Simple as that. That's why he's still got the highlighted butt window at the back there. I think this is just one of your basic guys, your juves, as in juvenile gang members. They haven't been around very long, they're not very great. And he's just using, I think that's a stub gun and what's the other cheap and cheerful gun they can get? Or pistol. Stub pistol and I don't remember the name. This is what I get for using like suggestions from other people. I haven't learned all the guns at a glance. But yeah, he's just a basic guy. They really like throwing knives. None of my starting roster actually have throwing knives, but they get modelled with them, and I think they look kind of cool just to have. Plus that leaves the room open to count them as a different loadout in the future. You don't have to play them as they look. It's not super strict like that. I just want that for ease of viewing when eventually they appear in a video. And then this is another one where, yeah, the throwing knife is just for show. But the lasgun, I think that is, it's a basic lasgun. Decided to paint it in the scheme I'm doing for all their weapons, rather than, you know, the military green lasguns usually are. But that's all he's using, and he's just holding a knife. He's also got a metal mouth. Like, their faces are great. The weapon expansion sprue also came with like some alternative heads that you don't get in the core box as well. And then finally this guy kind of breaking into a sprint over here. Necromunda still has grav guns, which came and went in 40k in the blink of an edition as far as I'm aware. The last edition I played still had grav weapons, whenever that was. So yeah, you can still get grav weapons in Necromunda. I presume they're still as OP and good as they were in 40k when they were introduced, to give Space Marines an edge, because Space Marines were having a tough time of it. So this is also someone in the starting lineup who has a gun that's just good against high armor things and or vehicles, if people use vehicles, which most people don't as far as I can tell, because it was from an expansion. But that is almost a crew. I think in total there's 8 models in the crew, but from the core box I'm only using 5, and then at some point in the future I'm going to need to get hold of that box they have of like their specialist guys. They've got like really cool looking assassin guys and really cool looking, like they've got spider robots attached to them. They're really neat looking, and I want some of those in my starting lineup. The other half of the Hive War box that they come with is just House Escher, which is the ladies with pistols, guns and poisons. I think you can more or less make a good starting roster from what they're provided with, maybe missing some weapons. So I'm not too fussed about them not being like optimally set up. I really like the sound and look of Delac, because they remind me of the Thin Men from XCOM, prior to them shedding their skins and revealing themselves to be snake people. So yeah, I expect to see more Delac in the future, because I do still have 2 more to paint up from the core box. No idea when I'll be picking up the additional models, so that's going to be in the distance somewhere. As we finish here, apologies again for all the sniffling and snoring I do. I hate having the cold, especially when it comes to video production, but I've got to do some stuff, so I thought, well, I've done a lot of painting, let's talk about that. And speaking of which, it's been a long time since I have painted any Elder Scrolls Call to Arms, or played it for that matter. I was just in the mood for something different. Again, I wanted a kind of a break from immediately jumping into doing another Kill Team or another thing Games Workshop related. And you do have to be in the right mood to deal with Modiphius's awful resin. So this is a chapter 4 miniature. This is Anbjorn or Anbjorn. I don't remember if it's an N or an M of the Dark Brotherhood in his Nord form and in his werewolf form. I believe you talk to him all of 2 times in Skyrim, and I'm pretty sure both times are optional. So you don't really get to know him very much, but Astrid is his wife. Like, he is the husband of the leader of the Dark Brotherhood Sanctuary that you begin your tale with in Skyrim if you do the Dark Brotherhood stuff. It's been such a long time. I went back in my own series to remind myself how I painted the Dark Brotherhood armour. It's Flesh Tear Red, Black Legion, Snakebite Leather, the 3 basics, and Null and Oil. Guilliman Flesh for the skin tone, Rattling Grime for the axe hilt, Leadbelcher Silver, and Blood for the Blood God. He's a very angry man who, I mean, I know back when I was talking about painting those other Dark Brotherhood, I already went into like the poor pacing that the Dark Brotherhood story has in Skyrim, and just, you don't get to know anybody. Well, except the 2 that survive, but they're not very interesting, and one of them only survives because they couldn't go killing a sort of technical child, even though it's a vampire, but whatever. That's another story for another day. The resin wasn't too bad. I always make sure I wash the Modiphius resin because it's so awful to work with, and if you want to avoid the thing TM, to bring back an old favourite, you've got to spray paint them. Like, just applying a base coat with a brush, it doesn't work. You've got to spray coat, unfortunately, and even then, it'll still happen. Don't get me wrong, it still happens, but it won't be as bad. That's the only advice I can give you. Anyway, the other reason I put off painting this guy for so long, because I've actually had him sitting for ages, is because he didn't have rules, and technically still doesn't. The Chapter 4 rules for Elder Scrolls Call to Arms, all the Wave 4 stuff, Chapter 4, whatever they call it, it's really hard to get, and I think I've finally managed to track down a copy within the UK that isn't directly from Modiphius, where they charge way too much for their own product, by the way. I think I managed to finally track one down, so it will hopefully be on its way to me, and I will do an unboxing of it, because I do have a lot to mention about Modiphius' problems with producing card. Not all of it is their fault, just to be clear. I remember them mentioning one of their factories burnt down, which is obviously horrific and great shame. Or, you know, one of the third parties they use to print their stuff. Anyway, that's a story for another day. Werewolf! Very cool miniature. Very, very fun to paint. I went over everything in the werewolf with Basilicanum Grey. Excuse me while I clear my throat. Trust me, you did not need to hear that. Basilicanum Grey over everything. Then I use Rattling Grime on the areas where there's more skin and less fur, so both sides, like outside of the main here, underneath the arms rather than on top of the arms where there's still thick fur, sides of the face and the feet. Oh, and the knees as well, just because that's the way it's modelled and is hopefully in focus. Apologies if it wasn't while I was talking about that. I used Volupus Pink for inside the mouth, although I then splattered Blood for the Blood God in there. Volupus Pink for the inside of the ears, and Imperial Fist Yellow for the eye glow. That was while the wash, which was Null and Oil, was still wet. Also, apologies if you can pick up the dog barking, she's upstairs right now though. Blood for the Blood God on the hands as well. For the base, I tried to match up to how the official paint job is, plus I didn't want too much grey on a grey mob, so I didn't do him standing on stone. In the official paint job, it is, like, you would think those are just like the Skyrim stones with the way they look, and I'm sure on other bases they are, but they're painted to look like moss on the official paint job. So I used Mantis Warrior Green for those, Leadbelcher Silver, and then used Agrat's Earthshade over everything. Oh, and I painted his axe, because his axe is actually there in the exact same way I did on his person. And I think the dog is now going to bark out of this window, which is much more audible. So I'll take a quick break there and be back with some final thoughts. But yeah, I'm going to paint some more Elder Scrolls stuff. I'm in the mood because I'm getting into Skyrim VR. So I'm back in that universe again for the first time in like a year. So potentially expect more from that in the future. So a few dog barks later, that's it for this one. I did mention probably not any kill team next time. Do expect the rest of the House Delac gang so I can finish those. Expect at least a few ghouls. I'm not saying I'll have all 5 done, but I certainly will have more likely than not some of them done. And expect some more Call to Arms. I am in the process of prepping an old box, the Adventurer the Adventurer Companion box, I think it's called, as I slowly die, which I've had sitting for ages, and it's old resin, old Modiphius resin, so it's especially bad to deal with. I've got that sitting, I just need to wait for it to stop raining so I can get outside and get it spray painted, because as I say, you've got to spray paint Modiphius resin if you want to use contrast paint, or any paint for that matter, because the whole reason the base coat doesn't go down is, like, it's a normal paint. So yeah, it's really rough to work with. You've got to put up with it and be in the mood to do so. But anyway, I hope this inspires you to get through your pile of grey shame. It doesn't matter if you're good at painting as long as you enjoy the process. If you want to show me what you've been painting, feel free to do so on Discord or Blue Sky, which is linked below if you want. If you need a link to the Discord, just let me know when I'm streaming over on my gaming channel or Twitch, and I will happily provide a link. I will see you in about 2 weeks for another update with more things to blather about, and until then, ta-ta for now.